Hello guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything's okay in your life. In this video, you will find information regarding the PvE tier list that I believe will cover the second half of 2024. Before we dive into the video, there are a few things I need to remind to you. If you listen to these, you won't struggle with certain parts of later in the video. This is because many people tend to skip these explanations, and we often encounter some ridiculous and funny comments in the comment section. But you're lucky in this respect, as you listen to the explanations and quickly grasp the logic behind the tier list. I don't want to drag this out any longer, so let's jump right into the details. First and foremost, there is a very important point I need to mention. This tier list was created at the community's request. During the almost 6 months period, there have been no obvious PvE changes in the game. Therefore, you will not find the pages detailing the performance of each class in this video, like the old ones. We will only examine the updated pages for Scholar and discuss the succession form of Dosa class. This tier list is based on the averages obtained from a survey conducted with over 90 different class masters. Almost all of the information here reflects the common opinions of these class masters. Therefore, we can say that this tier list provides a somewhat different and nearly consistent results compared to others. You can see some examples of the visuals on the screen right now. I didn't want to extend the video by adding all of these classes again. If you are curious about the classmasters' opinions regarding the classes, you can check the previous video. Creating a meta in Black Desert Online is the favorite thing for the Perlabis company. As a result, certain classes are significantly better than the other classes. I refer to these classes as S+ classes, and their numbers generally range from 2 to 5. This means that those in the S+ tiers are generally superior classes. The S tier classes represent that are strong compared to the rest of the game, where players can achieve very good performance once they manage to play them well. A tier classes generally represents those that perform at an average level or slightly above average. They include classes that you enjoy and consider playing, which will generally not disappoint you and yield average results. On the other hand, B tier classes represents those are below average and feel weak compared to the other classes and the game average. C and D tier classes represents those that quite poor or can be considered dead classes. So it means that if you're looking for performance and efficiency, do not touch C and D tier classes. In this part of the video, you will see that the tier lists are divided into 3 categories: early, mid, and end game. BDO is a vast and detailed game. Classes can perform poorly at certain stages and exceptionally well at others due to their mechanics. This is why we categorize them into these 3 phases. So what is early game? This phase represents one-shot type spots by nature. They are areas that are relatively easy to kill in the early stages of the game. Therefore, this phase corresponds to a period where faster classes are more effective in terms of performance. I can broadly say it covers spots until 230-240 AP. For example, Polyforest, Bashim, Sulfur, Plaku, Centaur, and etc. So what is mid-game? Mid-game spots have higher health pool compared to the early game spots. They represent areas for character with 240 AP to 290 AP. These spots have been designed according to the old mentality of Black Desert Online. Previously, Perlabis would make spots more crowded and scattered. Classes that can lure mobs or those can kill them easily with big AoE skills. For example, Serendi Elvia spots, Starzend, Hystria, Akman, Cycrea, Kalpha and Elvia Giants, and etc. Endgame corresponds to spots that require 290 AP and above. Each spot has its own requirements, which means you need to adjust your builds accordingly. Especially in the endgame phase, most of players can become confused. Some classes may do well in 1, maybe in 2 spots, but perform poorly the remaining part of the game. This leading the class masters to give scores based on the overall game performance. Thus, keep in mind that the scores you see reflect average performance of the class. For example, Gryphon, Troll Habitat, Hexa Sanctuary, Ash Forest, Crypt of Resting Toads, and Ulikita spots, and etc. Alright, we mentioned that there hasn't been a significant change in the recent months, isn't it? I can point on one update that affects PvE and PvP slightly. The buff we receive when we absorb Black Spirit Rage has been straightened. It now adds an additional 30% critical hit rate. This change has slightly affected the PvE performance of the classes that struggle with critical hit rate. However, it didn't significantly affect their existing performance or increase their tiers. It simply allowed for more consistent damage output. Okay, now we can summarize the changes in two different classes, Scholar and Dosa. Let's start from Scholar. Not gonna lie, when the Scholar class was added to the game, it was genuinely a fiasco. There were very slow animations, inconsistent AoEs, and so on. Resolving all these issues took over 2 months. Unfortunately, when preparing the previous tier list, these buffs had not been implemented yet. Because of that, I added the Scholar's old version in the previous video. In early game phase, Scholar receives a lower score due to its lack of mobility. Although its skills are sufficient to easily clear the early game spots, the weakness in the linear mobility holds it back somewhat. In the mid-game phase, it falls short in spots that were designed based on the old mentality of BDO developers. 2 to 3 years ago, the spots created in the game were scattered and inconsistent, requiring players to lure mobs or have very large AoE skills. Consequently, mid-game spots are somewhat outdated. The Scholar was not built to align with this old mentality and struggles a bit during the mid-game spots. Players who wish to enjoy playing it can certainly achieve average results, but they shouldn't expect more. In the end game, the character clearly shines. After the buffs, it felt very strong and has become a character I would almost universally recommend to everybody. While the skill tree may seem complex at the first glance, once you understand the logic, you will see that it is one of the easiest classes in the game. Therefore, Scholar can show its full performance quite distinctly. Unlike some other classes that may excel in specific spots but underperform in others, the Scholar consistently delivers good performance in nearly every endgame spots and is very easy to play. Additionally, the AP bonuses from its passive and the self buffs are generally helpful in spots where gear deficiencies might be an issue. To say it's an S+ class would certainly be foolish, but it is undoubtedly an S tier class in endgame PvE. So what about Dosa Succession? People still confused about this class. The Dosa class's awakening form has not been added to the game. We have no information on this matter. Like the Scholar class, it started as a complete fiasco. With subsequent minor adjustments, it currently exists in the game as a class with more average effects. Maybe with the future additions and tweaks, it could improve. The Magnus skill has not yet been integrated, and this skill could positively influence its performance. The class is designed to be very easy, which may be why they may not want it to be too powerful. It has inconsistent skills in terms of AoE. This inconsistency leads to uneven DPS in certain spots and, consequently, a lack of balanced PvE performance. Skills with a large AoE tends to perform in terms of DPS due to the slow animations. In my opinion, the class is still new, and in future, I believe that we will see more positive changes. During the early game phase, a clunky mobility will lead to an average game performance. You shouldn't expect much more than that. However, its ease of use is certainly an advantage for new players. In the mid-game phase, the slow nature of the big AoE skills does not allow for a fast grinding performance. Therefore, once again, you can expect an average performance at this level. In the endgame phase, the situation is slightly different. Generally speaking, it is possible to achieve average performance with good gear level. However, no matter how hard you try, you cannot achieve very high performances like S+ tier classes. This is limited for various reasons, including AoE inconsistency, DPS issue, slow animations, high cooldown issues, and etc. Therefore, if you find that an easy game and average performance are sufficient for you in the endgame spots, you may consider choosing the Dosa class. Definitely one of the best finger-friendly class in the game. It is possible to reach S tier levels with high gear and considerable effort. However, this does not change the fact that the class performs at an average level. After all, no one wants to invest that much effort only to achieve a mediocre or a bit more performance. There are plenty of the classes in the game that are well worth the effort you invest in. Alright, thank you for listening up to this point. You can briefly skip through the tier list part. I hope you guys like my contents. Do not forget, BDO is just a game. Have a nice game.